It might not be the holidays yet, but Amazon MGM want you to hang up your stockings early for Red One, the high-concept caper starring Dwayne Johnson, Chris Evans, and J.K. Simmons. Johnson plays the role he was born for, a hulking head of security to Simmons' Santa Claus, who is disillusioned with humanity's lack of goodness, and one day from retirement. Like Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, which Johnson collaborated on with Red One director Jake Kasdan, the festive adventure aims for action comedy. When Santa is kidnapped, Johnson's inexplicably immortal Callum Drift teams up with level 4 naughty lister Jack O'Malley Evans, who is a master thief, hacker, and somehow has had the superpower of being able to find people or things since childhood. Don't worry, that's not really important enough to be explained beyond it helping the plot lurch forward. Red One is a good analogy for a bad Christmas. It's excessive, there are a few unwelcome guests, and it's not really as fun as it looks from the outside. And I'm no Grinch. I am both an annual early adopter of the festive spirit, and I have great affection for lots of Christmas movies, including some universally panned ones. I regularly watch Hallmark Christmas movies on purpose. But I'm sorry to say that Red One is a slog that lacks any of the charm that might have saved it. The things that actually work in Red One. Credit where it's due, the Christmas action nails spectacle and lore. Dwayne Johnson and Christopher Hivju in Red One. Frustratingly, Red One's world building is very good and zoomed out a bit, there are things to enjoy. As with Jumanji, Jake Kasdan creates a rich mythology for this strange Christmas world, to the extent that you get the sense that it's been drawn up as a Dungeons and Dragons world. In that respect, the director, and the wider creative team, deserves credit. There is some ingenious reframing of Christmas traditions that do feel like they've been carefully crafted. The problem, though, is that Red One's anchor to the real world, particularly in its Arthur Christmas-like insistence on explaining magic with ultra-modern technology, lets it down. That leads to a bit of an identity crisis that smarter hidden world movies like Harry Potter avoid by simply making the time setting vague. The double world conceit is an interesting one that's undone by both being too separated, by tone, and not separated enough, like Rowling's Wizarding World always felt. That said, this part is supposed to be about the praiseworthy elements, and there will be criticism enough to come. The art design on show and the costume work, particularly the monsters and magical sets, is legitimately award-worthy. The sets are imaginative and impressively realized, the effects work mostly stands up, and if you're looking for a movie that has a very high frequency of wire-assisted stuntmen being flung through the air, then Red One is for you. Red One's cast actually hides its best performance, which belongs to Christopher Hivju as a new take on Krampus, which was genius casting. He plays the monster with just the right touch of his Game of Thrones character Tormund Giantsbane, a lascivious, hedonistic rogue who loves chaos. That dark charm suits Hivju, even if he's robbed of lots of his ability to emote by an impressive but very heavy full-body prosthetic suit. Who is Red One for? I'm not sure it actually knows. There's something of an identity crisis at play here. Red One's most difficult demand of the audience is explaining who it's actually for. Typically, I try to avoid this explicitly impacting my viewing experience and setting it aside for later, if it's relevant, but I was sucked into the question repeatedly by the film's preposterously wandering tone. There are moments that suggest Kasdan wanted to make something more adult, with jokes and subtle winks that are wholly inappropriate for kids, but then there's also an obvious play to 10-year-old boys too. In the end, I came to the Christmas epiphany that Red One is basically aimed at Fortnite players who wouldn't be seen dead enjoying a typical Christmas film. The set pieces play like disparate levels in a video game, a narrative style that actually worked for Jumanji, given, the fact that it is a video game movie, impressive in themselves but not really in service of the wider story. So while there's a careful eye for spectacle, and an obvious embrace of the comic book movie style of filmmaking, it's not wholly successful because someone seems to have forgotten to make it all fun. That parallel to comic book movies is a pertinent one given the obvious cost on display. Red One was initially intended to be released on Amazon Prime, but delays thanks to Hollywood's 2023 strikes and the apparent promise of early test scores led to a theatrical swerve. It does feel grand enough to be a theatrical movie too, because there are so many creative decisions that are drenched in money that it's little wonder that the budget is reported as anywhere between $200 million and $250 million. Unlike some ballooned budgets, you can see where all of that money went. Putting aside the undoubtedly costly lead cast, there is a massive amount of effects work, masses of prosthetics for multiple background characters, massive sets, and a commitment to wonder that I wish had translated into more emotional substance. As it is, I couldn't help but feel the oppressive weight of the cost when entirely CG characters, like the polar bear used heavily in the marketing, failed to justify their inclusion at all. I don't begrudge the movie that budget, why should I? It's not my money, but the excess doesn't match the substance, and I wish more of the cost had gone into developing a story to match the production values, or a script with any memorable moments beyond The Rock saying D***ched once.